Welcome to Upshot. I'm Huntsville Mayor Tommy Battle. Our program this week will discuss the future of one of Huntsville's most important economic assets, Cummings Research Park. Cummings Research Park is the nation's second largest research park with more than 300 companies and 29,000 employees. The park just marked its 50th year in operation, and we've seen some changes through the decades, including doubling the park size and in the introduction of major commercial assets such as Bridge Street Mall. It's time for the park to take a hard look at the next 50 years. What do we want to see? And that's just what we're doing with our leadership team. Joining me here today is Erin Koshut, the director of Cummings Research Park, and she is leading a major new master planning effort for Cummings Research Park in its 3,800 acres. Erin, welcome to Upshot.
Thank you, Mayor. Happy to be here.
Listen, tell me a little bit about who's out in the park. We have Hudson Alpha, Biotech, we have telecommunications. Who all is out in the park?
Sure, we have our primary industries for the city that are represented in the park. We've got our heritage industries of aerospace and defense that populate the park, and as you mentioned, sir, Hudson Alpha and the biotech growth we've seen out there, as well as commercial IT and Internet of Things type companies, some others focused on cybersecurity, for example, and several growing small businesses.
Wow, sounds like a huge high-tech area.
It is.
More engineers and degreed professionals per capita than anywhere else in the U.S., is that right?
That's correct, correct.
Good. You know, we're bounded on the east side by UAH, which is an engineering college and provides lots of engineers for the park. And on the west side by Hudson Alpha, and Hudson Alpha just announced, what was it, the world's first genomic medical clinic, is that right?
That's correct,
Good. And tell us a little bit about Hudson Alpha and what you're seeing out of them.
They are truly a model of ingenuity and innovation for that biotech growth. They have over 32 associate companies inside their 152-acre biotech campus and have over 600 employees there. And certainly with the growth we've seen in the investment of Jim Hudson and Lonnie McMillan and the companies and the types of work that they're doing that are truly changing lives at, one at a time and sometimes many at a time.
You know, I was always fascinated to see Rick Myers come in with his team from Stanford. You know, they came in and brought in the team that mapped the human genome. And then Howard Jacobs and his team coming in from Wisconsin, they came down and said, okay, now we mapped the human genome, how do we medically apply that mapping? And it's just fascinating seeing the ingenuity that's coming out of there.
It is.
Do you feel really smart when you walk in there?
Absolutely, I do. It's a great place. They have really built a place that not only thrives around that ingenuity and innovation, but is a place where even as someone who is not of a technical background, you want to be surrounded by that.
The collaboration is what I really love. You look at, you have one side which is research, one side which is commercial, and they all eat together, they collaborate together, they work together. And every time I walk into that building, I feel like my IQ has gone up 10 degrees and 10 points, and of course theirs is still 200 points way above me. Now we're starting on master planning.
Yes.
And going back to, I guess back to square one really, because we started 50 years ago. Why are we doing master plans?
Well, we have never had a comprehensive master plan for the park that looks at the entire 3,800 acres and not only the companies that are currently in the park and how to support their growth, but also how we need to position the park for future success when we're talking about recruiting companies to the park and what they're looking for. And so it's time for us to take a look at that. We've had 50 years of phenomenal success, and now we want to position the park for another 50 years of that same success, if not greater.
Do you have industries that you're targeting as you come in and look at the park, separate industries or separate segments of industries and everything?
As part of the master plan, we've done a parallel market research effort and looked at where do our industry capabilities meet our research competencies, and we've done this cross-connect with those and have identified essentially 7 targets of industry, and they're really around defense systems optimization, precision atmospheric science, applied genomics, and several others. So they really get much more specific than aerospace, defense, biotech that allows us to play to our strengths.
Good. And as we go out and we say, hey, this is our new master plan. We've got these industries that we're targeting in, and we want to come we want to recruit those industries here. Tell me a little bit about the recruiting effort. I've been on some of the recruiting trips. You've been on some of them, and kind of explain to the audience what we do on those recruiting trips.
Sure. It's really about looking at what is out there and what kinds and types of companies that we think belong here. You and your team have certainly set up an environment that allow us to already have a low cost of doing business and a low cost of living, which really set that standard that then we can also say we have an incredible and highly educated workforce. And then now we look at what do we need and how do we pitch what we have in terms of the park and the ingenuity and innovation that exist within that park and the collaborative efforts and the shared good that can be established by being in the park and surrounded by people who are used to doing really difficult things and have been for more than 50 years.
It's really interesting. You look at the park. We have Research Park East, which is Research Park Boulevard all the way over to UAH, and Research Park West, which is Research Park Boulevard all the way, just pretty much Slaughter, I guess it would be. And Columbia High School is right at the very end of it. A lot of people who haven't been out to the park lately will say, why do we need a new master plan? The park seems to be pretty successful and everything. Why would we spend, $300,000 on a new master plan? Address some of that for
Okay,
us.
sure. Everyone loves the park in terms of driving out there and all of the green space. And so we want to preserve that and protect the value of what is out there. But we also find that as we've gone to recruit these companies, what they're looking for is different. What they're looking for based on what their employees are looking for is different than it was 50 years ago. And so that can mean that they want open space. They want more of that collaborative or collusion space. Connectivity inside the park and to outside of the park is really important to them as well. And so there are some physical changes that will occur to the park that allow us to better recruit those companies. And that includes all the way down to the details of different zoning ordinances that are currently established, different uses that are currently allowed in the park, so that we can truly position the park to recruit the types of companies we want.
You see, as we talk about more collaborative space in the park, do you see more retail in the park? Possibly retail or possibly office use or some possibilities that blend in with everyday life.
Absolutely. We see those in strategic places throughout the park. I think you won't find a blanket, retail is now allowed in the park. I think what we'll do is leverage the strength of Bridge Street being in the park already, and then look at other areas where it makes sense, where you want to revive those areas. You want to offer that retail mixed use to better connect what's inside the park and around those areas. And so it'll look at it from a very strategic path forward.
One of the most highly sought things that I hear is Starbucks. They want a Starbucks in the park.
I totally understand that.
They want their cup of Java in the morning.
That's right.
Research Park East, buildings that were built in the 1960s. Some probably, have served their useful life and everything. Do you think we'll be addressing some of those and, possibly even scraping some and starting all over?
I think we have to look at the east side of the park in a different way than we've looked at it before. And I think we have to look at each individual building and parcel and look at where it makes sense for working hand in hand with those owners, so that there's a decision to be made about, is there value in, renovating that building? Will that increase the value, or is that building, gone beyond its value?
Functional obsolescence,
right.
we call it in the real estate world.
Functional obsolescence.
Yes.
So you scrape it, you put that green space back into your, essentially your bank that allows you to transform that area around it. And I think the options are on the table that allow us to put a shot in the arm for CRP East.
Good. Is in one of the things that I see, that could be a benefit to them, is, the old plan was big old campuses for offices. Now with more collaboration, it seems like we're looking more towards an urban environment, more dense, more density, maybe buildings right next to each other and collaborating like the Hudson Alpha model. by adding that density, which I guess basically lowers your land costs, does that give them some incentive to being able to actually scrape a building and start all over?
Sure, I think the incentive is there. You're right that we're seeing people not only want more dense environments where they work, but they want to see more people. They want to have greater connections. There are really opportunities for each of those owners to be more invested in making their property more valuable, and thereby, making CRP East in particular, which will have the greatest change, more valuable and much more energetic than it has been.
Good. Research Park East, the 50-year-old park, it's amazing. A lot of people don't realize when we first moved to Research Park, there was a huge community kickback, especially from property owners. And the property owners who own the Hick building were worried that we were going to drive them out of business and leave them with vacant buildings that would stay empty for years and years. And as we moved into Research Park, and why was the city investing? Why should a city invest in something like a research park?
Well, certainly, I think, the first point is the economic impact that CRP has to the area. We're talking a $12.9 billion economic impact for the region. That, to me is kind of a period. It says you need to invest, you must invest. We also want to continue being that place that encourages, supports, and fosters innovation. And I think that CRP East and the city's role in re-energizing that really speaks to our heritage of being a city that constantly diversifies, constantly looks at ways we can better foster that innovation. And so I think it is a great value for the city to be involved and invested in all of CRP.
One of the greatest sales points we ever have is when you go into someone and you start talking to them about Huntsville, you tell them we have more degreed professionals per capita than anywhere else in the U.S. You say we have the second largest research park in America, the fourth largest research park in the world. And as they look at that, as you're talking to them, you can see the light kind of come on in their eyes that maybe this is a place that they want to be a part of. Right. And as we talk about them being a part of our community, it's very, to me, it's very important that we show them that there is a partnership between the city and between the research and technology that we're trying to, quite frankly, trying to make sure that it happens out in that area. What's been your experience as you've talked to people who might not know a whole lot about Huntsville, but then you start talking about Research Park and engineering quotients and all that kind of thing?
It's been a really interesting experience. Through the master plan process, I've had the opportunity to travel to some other areas across the country and talk with, whether city planning officials or research park directors, and we've gone to places like Raleigh-Durham and Madison, Wisconsin, and Buffalo, New York, and several others. And, they're like, Huntsville, Alabama, and second largest research park, and we're like, yes. And then you start to go through the number of things that make our community special, and truly they often go, I had no idea. And it is a phenomenal story for us to be able to tell, and I think that's part of the future of CRP, is telling more of that phenomenal story.
Now, we've got how many acres and how many acres left to develop out in the area?
Sure. We've got 3,843 total acres in the park, and we've got around 400 acres left to develop. As part of looking at the master plan of that 400 acres, if you were to develop it with your current ordinances and guidelines, here's when the park would be full. But if you take a look at those things and perhaps make some slight modifications, you could extend the life of the park in terms of your full acreage, taking advantage of your full acreage much further, and that's one of the efforts we're looking at.
One of the things we've been working on quite a bit is millennials, attracting the young, bright millennials. Each one of them, they have a choice. They can go live in Boston, they can live in the Beltway in Washington, they can live in the East Coast, West Coast, and we're trying to attract them to Huntsville. Do you find that those are the future workers of Research Park?
Absolutely they are. Absolutely they are. And so we, setting up the future of Research Park is about looking at that workforce that may be, in their 30s now, and they're going to be in their 50s soon. And you look at those that are just coming out of college, and then you look at, recruiting those potential workers that are still in college right now. And what are they looking for? Because we often find now that millennials, when they are deciding what job they're going to take, they will fly to a city and do a test run and see what the city's like and see where they would work and what that's like and the environment and sense of community. And so we want to make sure that we're putting our best foot forward when they do that.
One of the things that I call the millennials, I call them job multipliers, because as they come in and they're some of the smartest and brightest. If we can attract the smartest and brightest, and we can get them to develop the newest widget, and the widget has to have people produce it, then it has to have companies produce it, then it has a whole industry that follows it. I mean, we've done that time and time again. We started the whole geospatial movement out with Intergraph. SCI started in someone's basement and later became a leader. AdTrend,
Right.
telecommunications. We found a sweet spot in telecommunications that had the world headquarters of AdTrend. So as we attract those young, bright millennials, I think to me they're going to be they are our future, and we've got to give them something to look for. What, living wise, and what are they looking for? What can we provide them to help them make a decision to come to Huntsville, Alabama?
Sure. I think they're looking for that vibrancy, that life and sense of community. They want to be able to walk outside where they work or walk outside where they live and see people and have an experiential activity whenever they step outside of their door, whether that's their door of their home or their door of their office. And they are not looking for isolation. They, really want that connected feeling. They want to be surrounded by noise, if you will, even if it's background noise to them, and be able to get outdoors. They like to be outdoors a lot. And so we really have to look at how we can continue to attract millennials. I think what's going on with Downtown Huntsville Inc. and the vibrancy we see for downtown is extremely important to our ability to continue to recruit millennials to the park into Huntsville.
Craft beer?
Craft beer, absolutely. Food trucks, all of these different experiential activities are really what they're looking for.
Tell me, I've noticed that you've started a lot of activities out in the parks. I guess you would call get-togethers on certain subjects and food trucks in the park and everything else. Tell us about some of your plans in there.
Sure. We've got an active year up ahead. We have started last year. We started with something called Geek to Geek, which is really that geek speak where, if you are at a technical level, you can come have a great time, craft beer, food, and we use what's called a Japanese presentation format it auto advances as you're making your presentation about your company, and it's really a sink or swim and kind of fun to watch what happens there. This month we're launching a new series that's going to be a trolley tech tour in CRP where we highlight 3 companies and the work that they do around certain industries. So we are approaching April, which is typically severe weather activity increases, and so we're focusing on our severe weather assets for our first tech trolley tour at the end of March. And have another one of those, actually 2 of those for the remainder of the year. We're doing several outdoor live music events and food truck fests, particularly hitting the summertime, and lots of fun activities ahead for CRP, trying to create that sense of community.
Who would ever expect you to have 5 food trucks and a guy playing a guitar and you have 5,000 people?
It's great.
It's just amazing.
It's so much fun.
It amazes me. And now you're also doing a newsletter, right?
That's right. We recently completely reformatted our newsletter where we really try to make it a place that's not only telling the stories of the cool stuff that's done in the park, but it's a place where you can also find networking and collaborative and fun events that happen inside the park, where you can get an update on what's happening in the park that you may not hear about or know about. And then we also launched social media platforms. So we're on Facebook and on Twitter, again, trying to connect with the employees that are in the park and share the cool stories and fun events that are happening. We've got along with your Geo initiative, we've got our first ever hackathon happening in CRP in May. And so we use those social platforms as a way to help communicate and connect.
Yeah. Now, if someone wanted to get on your newsletter chain, and how would they contact you? How would they do that?
Sure. They can either go to Facebook or Twitter, and we've got a sign-up link there, or they can visit our website, CummingsResearchPark.com, and navigate to the homepage, and there will be a sign-up button for them there.
So just look under Cummings Research Park.
Cummings Research Park, that's right.
Good. And, as we talk about the changes in the park, that we're trying to attract the millennials, we're trying to grow the park, and we have our industries that are so important to us. What do you see for the future of the park? I mean, we've had a great 50 years, and and you can really look at that 50 years as helped this whole community grow. 29,000 people working out there. What do you see in the future?
I think the future is extremely bright for CRP. I think this master plan sets us on that path forward. And so I see CRP as a place where companies of all sizes thrive and grow, where you on a daily basis are driving and riding your bicycle out in the park and you see people walking and running and through greenways beside, beside the companies, and you really just get that sense of vibrancy, and you're able to see that the who's who of high-tech companies call the park home. And that currently exists today, and we look forward to advancing that.
Redstone Gateway, does it kind of work as a partner to Research Park, just a more dense partner to Research Park?
It works as a partner. Absolutely, there's more urban density, and certainly for those that want to be closer, if they have a particular, need that they have relative to the type of office they want and the type of location that they want, Redstone Gateway makes sense for that company. What we find with CRP is that if you want to be in a place that has its mission for more than 50 years of doing the really hard things, and the ingenuity and innovation are surrounding you every day. And you want a place where, as we move forward, that connectivity and collaboration, you see it, you feel it, you hear it, then CRP is where you'll want to be. So I think there's a place for everybody at the table.
And it's kind of interesting, CRP is generally, a good bit of them is owner occupied. People actually own their property, and they know that they're going to be on that property for a long time. Redstone Gateway is owned by Corporate Office Property Trust, so you have a long-term lease there, and you lease for a long time. But if you want ownership, you have the opportunity to do both. You can either go lease from somebody, or you can have ownership, and ownership is key to being part of your community,
Absolutely.
staying in that community.
Absolutely, you want them to be invested in the community. Yep.
I was talking to somebody today who was visiting here from out of town, and they were staying downtown, and they said, it was amazing. I could get out and I could start running, and I saw your signs, and within 3 miles I was on walking paths and bike trails, and said it was just amazing that you had all that right around your downtown area. But also right around the Research Park area, we're now setting up greenways that will take us all the way into Redstone Arsenal, right?
Yeah, absolutely. There's greenways that extend over around Redstone Gateway, and that your team at the city is working to extend those under 565 and connect them through over in CRP applications around the Cabela's area. And then as part of our master plan about connecting that point to the Indian Creek Greenway, and how do you utilize Explorer Boulevard, which is a 3-mile loop, as part of that. And that gets back to both having those extensions and that physical infrastructure and wayfinding signage, and it really presents a great opportunity for people that are looking to bike or run, and they want that longer distance and that straight connection. We will have it.
Good. Yeah. How important is Redstone Arsenal to Research Park?
Oh, absolutely important. CRP wouldn't exist if it wasn't for Redstone Arsenal. CRP was created in support of the work that was going on in the Arsenal, and certainly, I would say that most of our employees in the park support the work that goes on in the Arsenal, and so they are a strong partner. We absolutely support what goes on there, and so do our companies, and so definitely.
What is one of your most outside of the box companies that is in Research Park? One that nobody would expect?
I actually have to say it's probably Hudson Alpha.
Okay.
What we find across the park is that if you've never been in the park, or if you work daily, you just think that they're buildings, and you don't understand, and I get it, I don't understand sometimes what goes on inside. The character and the ingenuity is inside the bricks and mortar. Hudson Alpha and their associate companies are doing some really amazing things. I mean, to have the Smith Clinic that is, diagnosing rare diseases using genomics, the only one like it in the world.
World's first.
Right. And would you know that just looking at a building? Would you know that, there are companies in there that are doing testing for breast cancer genes that's making it available to the common public so that they can afford it, so they can understand and make decisions about their future. And so really, from the biotech standpoint, Hudson Alpha does that. You've got, companies like Digium, where it is just one of those cool companies that has a little bit of a California environment inside. You've got hammocks, they're in shorts, they are not your traditional government contractor company. And we love that kind of diversity that we have in the park.
They do voice
Celebrate
over
it.
IP.
They do.
Start off with voice over IP.
It started out AdTran and then and they
One
grew up.
of the interesting things, I was talking to a Digium employee the other day, and they said, fiber to the home will make a big difference. So probably 22% of their workforce is working from the home right now. Are you seeing that? Is that affecting the park, or is that going to be an asset to the park to be able to have fiber to the home so that you can work as a consultant off at home and then bleed your information into the park?
Absolutely. Fiber is a great asset, and to be able to have the fiber available at home to also for our small businesses, for those to leverage it and to help them grow is fantastic. We've also have, fiber networks inside CRP as well now that, they're able to link the businesses. So you really look at it from the standpoint of fiber, regardless of whether you're working from home, you're a small business, you're a large business. And then you have the opportunity to say, it's not just fiber, we're a gig city. And what a selling point it is in terms of recruitment and of companies.
Good.
Puts us on the map.
One of the most unusual companies that I've found out there is the chicken biotech company that
Yes.
Aviagen,
Yes.
who has taught us how to make plumper, bigger chickens, and it's just fascinating. The world headquarters is sitting out in Research
Right.
Park, and who would have ever thought it?
Yeah.
So it's a fascinating world out there. Erin, thank you for doing a great job at Research Park and being part of our partnership that makes Huntsville continue to grow and continue to be a special place. And I'd like to tell everybody that the master planning effect is still ongoing here, and it will be ongoing for probably the next 50 years, because once we get a plan done, it never ends. We keep working with it. I'm Mayor Tommy Battle, and we'll see you next time on Upshot.